Picture a sweltering cobblestone street in eastern France. The summer of 1518 is beating down on the city of Strasbourg, and the smell of baking bread hangs heavy in the humid air. Stepping out into the street is a woman named Frau Troffea. She begins to step and spin and lurch, but there are no musicians playing. There is no festival. She looks absolutely miserable. She kept moving for 6 consecutive days. She skipped meals, she skipped sleep. By the end of the week, her feet were raw and bleeding. Her body was locked in a compulsive loop, completely detached from her own willpower. This sudden, terrifying loss of bodily autonomy served as the inciting incident for a medical disaster. Within the first week, 34 other residents stepped into the dirt and mirrored her frantic, rhythmic twitching. By the end of the month, the number reached 400. A massive crowd of citizens spinning and convulsing across the city squares. The human cardiovascular system can only sustain so much continuous exertion. Dancers began dropping to the ground, killed by sudden heart attacks, massive strokes, and severe exhaustion. Hundreds of people were pulled into a fatal, inescapable marathon by an unseen pressure. Something was powerful enough to compel these citizens to literally dance themselves to death. The local authorities panicked. The physicians of 1518 didn't have access to modern diagnostic tools, like blood panels or imaging technology, to decipher what was happening inside the dancers. After observing the frenzied, sweaty crowd, the medical council confidently announced their diagnosis. The victims were suffering from overheated blood. Their official prescription was to burn the heat out through more exertion. They instructed the exhausted victims to keep moving until the illness left their systems. To facilitate this treatment, the city council actually built a wooden stage in the public market. They hired professional pipers and drummers to maintain an upbeat tempo for the dying crowd. By providing a rhythmic soundtrack, the government turned an isolated psychological breakdown into a state-sponsored mass casualty event. Modern epidemiologists reviewing this 500-year-old cold case typically start by interrogating the food supply. This is the bad bread theory. Ergot is a fungus that infects damp rye crops. When consumed, it produces alkaloids similar to LSD, triggering hallucinations and violent muscle spasms. But ergotism has a specific biological signature. It severely restricts blood flow, which effectively chokes off circulation to the legs and feet. A victim with failing circulation lacks the physical stamina to maintain the high-intensity movement required to dance for 6 days straight. With poisoned food ruled out, researchers point to a different cause: Mass Psychogenic Illness. Strasbourg in 1518 was a site of extreme environmental trauma. Failed harvests brought widespread famine, while outbreaks of plague and poverty decimated the population. This created an environment of inescapable chronic dread. When a group of people is subjected to overwhelming fear for long enough, they can enter a collective, protective trance. The dancing plague was a shared physical delusion engineered entirely by an unbearable environment. The outbreak only stopped when its victims ran out of energy to give. Many died on the streets, while survivors were loaded onto wagons and carted away to mountain shrines to pray for a cure. Modern analysis strips away the medieval fears of demonic possession or cursed bread. The event stands as a documented, desperate psychological break. It exposes a deep vulnerability in human consciousness when it is subjected to extreme, sustained trauma. When the mind can no longer process the reality of its surroundings, it can bypass conscious control entirely to cope with the stress. Under enough pressure, the human brain can fatally hijack the physical body, driving it toward total destruction.